Okay, let's now go to um, create tables. Now I'm using the template which I had mentioned before, connection template. So what I can do is now I just comment this. I don't need this one. The printer function. Um, so what I can do is here, if the connection is successful, I can create a query, right? So I use a query. I open a query object or query probably variable, and then I can create this query here. Right now, for example, let's say I want to create a table here, right? I want to write create table statement, right? Please see the notes how to write create table statement. So what I can do actually, rather than writing directly these statements inside these uh, codes, I can actually go to the PHP MyAdmin. So again, I am asking you to please watch the last week video. So I have explained how to connect the PHP MyAdmin. So once you go to the PHP MyAdmin, you can actually go to the SQL command interface, and then you can write the create table statement. Now here I am creating a table called tutors, right? So create table tutors, open brackets. I define all the columns, right? So for example, I want the tutor ID, it's the integer int. I want it to be not null, and it's the primary key. Sometimes you may need an auto increment for your tutor ID. Each record need to have separate. For example, the first one is 1, second one is 2, likewise you want auto increment primary key. In that case, you need to add auto increment command or keyword here, right? You will get the keyword when you keep typing. So I don't include that there here. So then the primary key, comma, and then the rest of the column names. The second column name is username. It's variable character, that means varchar, 10 characters long, comma. The third one is the password column. Again, the variable character, that means varchar, 10 characters long, comma. And then the date join is a date type, um, a date type data, right? And then if it is go, you can actually there is an execute button there, um, or go button there. Once you go, it will actually create the tutor table in your database, right? So if there is an error message, it will display in red there, and you can do any adjustments. So what I can do is, if it is successful, so that means I know my create table SQL statement looks okay and there is no error, I can copy and paste it inside inside here, right? Inside there. So that's what I can do now. Alright, so once I copy and paste the query here, now imagine that I have not created any um, table in my MySQL database. Now usually when I create a table in my SQL database using PHP MyAdmin panel, what I will do is I write the query or create table statement, and I press the go button there, right? And it will create this. But in this environment, if I run it through the PHP as a PHP script, so how can I instruct the PHP engine to run this query, right? So to do that, I need another function. So what I can do is, once I have this query, I can have a function called MySQLi query function. So in that query function, what I will do is I'm passing two parameters. The first parameter is my connection object, so I know that it's successful, right, in this case, comma, and then I pass the query object into MySQL. So it is actually similar to something that we press go button here to create the table there, right? So for the same purpose we do this query function here, right? Same thing is happening. And then it's good practice to use MySQL like close function to close the connection. So otherwise what we have to do, we need to close the browser manually, right? So it's not a good practice, right? So as a good practice, make sure once you run the query, you always close the connection. Right, so imagine that I want to run this create table statement. I'm so before that, now remember, now since I have a created the tutors um, table in my using my PHP my admin. So what I can do is I can delete the table first. I use the drop table command to delete it. So I use the drop table command in PHP to delete it, because otherwise what will happen, I will get an error message because I'm recreating another tutor table from my PHP script. So I first drop the table, and then I run this script, create a PHP. Now I saved it as a slash a dash create dot php. So if I run that in my Mercury server or local host, I'll get a kind of a message like this: connection successful, because according to my file, you can see it created. Once it created, I will get this connection successful. So this connection successful message. So I will get that here. And then you can actually test it whether the table already created by going to PHP my admin and see whether it is already created. And then actually it's a good practice. So if it is a already created, what can I do next as a step? um, Now you can see here in a MySQL, I query this connection and query I running through this function. I'll capture it in a variable first. um, Variable first. So for example, I go to here uh, sorry, in this case here, um, so what I'm doing here, um, basically that query result, I, I'm capturing it to a variable called result. Okay. uh, and then I have a if and else statement. I want to find out whether the result is successful or not. Okay, whether it actually sent me a successful um, creation or not. So I captured it and I used the if else statement to check whether the result is true or false. If it is true, I want to echo the create table successful, or else create table is failed. Alright, so if I run this query or this PHP, create PHP file in my Mercury or local host, and if I forgot to delete the tutors file, because I already created it, right? I already created it. Now imagine, for let's assume that I forgot to actually delete the tutors file before, which I created in my PHP my admin. So if I run this query using PHP script, what will happen is I get this message: connection is successful, create table failed, create table failed. because it will get a false statement here, um, because the table already exists in my database, data table called tutors, right? So I will get create table fail. So how can I actually avoid this? I can avoid this by actually inserting a very small command into my query um, string. So what I can do is, in my create table statement query string, I can write create table and just add if not exist. If not exists. So that means if the tutor file or tutor table is not exist, create this table, otherwise don't create it, right? So if I add this just small if not exist command, and then rerun the create PHP file in Mercury or localhost, now I will get this message: connection is successful, create table is successful, right? So that means this will come as a true, um, because the table is already there. Then I'll get create table is successful, right? So that's something you need to think about.